We're at the Boathouse in Central Park in New York City, and I thought I'd do a video on the importance of your mental outlook for your physical health. Because with everything that's going on with the coronavirus, people are finding themselves in uncharted territory, and it's very easy to lose track of how important your outlook is for your physical health, because that's the main thing that people are concerned with right now. One of the most important books that I've read in my life is called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who was a psychologist in a concentration camp during the time of the Holocaust. And the interesting thing about the book is he said that he could identify when somebody was going to die within 24 hours. And the reason he said that is because they lost their mission or their hope or whatever it is they were planning on doing once they got out of the camp. Now, of course, that's an extreme example and absolutely nothing to do with the situation that we're in right now. But even under those conditions, he could identify when somebody mentally was going to a negative place that it would actually break down their whole system, including their physical body, and then they would die. So what you could identify 4 different categories, basic categories of mindsets that people might be having right now. And the first is concern. And concern is a good place to be because concern carries linear thought. In other words, there's a threat or a problem, and you're going to take a solution that might get you out of that problem. It might not get you out of the problem, and then you take another concerned thought and continue doing that until you get yourself to a place where you need to be. The next one is worry. And worry is characterized by circular thought. In other words, you keep going around and around in circles with the same thoughts and no solution. And this then grows into fear, and then the next category, which is anxiety and depression, which carries a whole host of problems with it, physically, mentally, and spiritually. When you're in this, it's not only circular thought, but it's a downward spiral of circular thoughts. So it's you thinking things are getting worse and worse and worse, and not having any solutions or any way to get out of that situation. And I can tell you that's an easy place to be right now, because typically the way our fight or flight response acts is that something is coming. We identify that there's something that is a threat to us. And that typically is, like, you could say, a car coming at you from down the street that might hurt you. So you jump out of the way. If it's an animal that's going to attack you, you can decide whether or not you are going to fight this animal or run from it. You can't run from the coronavirus. So you're all geared up and ready to go and do something, and there's nothing for you to do. And on top of that, it can very easily take you into the next category, which is panic, because there's so much on the media that is really exploiting that. And it's important to know if on a news show they can make you feel fear, then you're probably going to go back to them. But if they can make you feel panic, you're probably not going to leave them. And it's important to ask yourself, if you stopped watching it altogether, would you still get the important news that you needed? Is it important for you to know how the death rate the mortality rate is climbing, or any of these things that the media is telling you? What is of utmost importance for you to know that is making you feel panic? And would you get that information without that? So panic is characterized by, it's not only a spiral downward, it's now taking action. And the biggest problem here is people think that they're in concern when they're in there, and they're thinking they're making rational decisions to get out of that. So it's important to be aware of your process and which one of these categories you're in. And if typically you're not good at knowing which one you're in, it's great to ask somebody to check in with who you trust to say, like, okay, is it a good idea for me to run out right now and fist fight somebody for some toilet paper, as if it's the last most important thing I'm going to need to survive? Because any rational person would have told any of those people no, but they didn't realize they were in that situation. So another way that people do this is this downward spiral is in relationships, as an example. Somebody might imagine that someone else, their friend, is mad at them because they haven't called them for a week. And then the spiral starts going downward, and they start thinking of all the things that they said to them in the last week or the last year, or the social media posts they might have made that they could have been offended by, or something else. And it keeps going downward and downward and downward until you realize this person hates your guts. And then you start thinking to defend yourself, okay, well, if this is the way they're going to act, they said something to me 3 years ago, and now I'm going to be just as mad at them. And it spirals and spirals, and then they call you, and then you realize there's actually nothing wrong. And you say, oh, okay, I shouldn't have done that. Now, people do this in all aspects of their life. You know, there are people do this with their finances, and their stocks might go down, and they think like, oh my God, how am I going to pay my mortgage? I'm not going to be able to feed my family. I'm going to have to work more hours. And then all of these things happen to them as if they were going to be homeless. And then the stocks go back up and they go, okay, it was a false alarm. Other ways people do this are with their health, which is when they might get a headache or they're not able to go to the bathroom and they start thinking, oh my God, now I have the coronavirus and I'm going to die. So it's important to realize your process, realize if typically you do these type of things and if you're spiraling yourself, and is there a way to get out of that, typically by calling somebody you trust and telling them what's going on and seeing if they can help you out of it, and then make linear decisions to get out of that situation. So it's also important to be aware of your success rate when you're spiraling down in these areas. So if you typically think your friends are mad at you often, how often are you right about that? Is it 1 out of 100 times that they might have actually been mad at you? And how easy was it to mend the situation? So if it's 1 out of 100, then that means you have a 1% success rate. So then realize anytime you're in this downward spiral that you typically have a 1% success rate. So that means if you're right this time, then the next 99 times you're going to be wrong about it. Or most probably you're wrong now and you probably have another 80 times to go before you're actually right about it again. The other thing you could do is find evidence for your calm. It obviously makes you feel better to feel calm than in the state of anxiety or panic or depression or worry. So there's so many things, you have so many resources right now to find that. So yeah, the media might tell you that there is nothing to be but in panic and the mortality rate is increasing. But there are a lot of things right now that you could find that are really good news. I just saw a story of 2 people in their 90s who got the coronavirus in Italy, and both of them got over it together. So it's a matter of doing the research to find out what's going to make you feel calm and focusing on that. Other ways to get out of this is taking a mind, body, and spirit approach, as I always talk about here on the channel. So that might mean by making decisions in this current situation with the coronavirus to, okay, we're going to change our diet, we're going to change our lifestyle. So that might mean the family's going to start eating better, we're going to start taking vitamins and nutrients, and I talked about that a couple of videos ago. I like vitamins A, D, and C, zinc. There are some herbs in there, essential oils as well. Echinacea, cat's claw, peppermint, melaleuca, which is tea tree, and a few other things. Hydrating yourself and doing all of these things to make linear decisions so you feel more in control and not getting caught up in the scale of going from worry to anxiety and depression and panic because there's nothing you can do, because there's not a whole lot you can do right now other than be concerned and wait for the information that's coming to us, because there's a lot of mixed information and contradictory information, which also leads to that. And that could be, you know, somebody who gets the virus and they get over it quickly, they had no symptoms and there was no problem. And then you need to look at the people who are getting it and they feel terrible, they couldn't breathe and they're drowning and it seems like they're in perfect health, but you really don't know what their health is. You're getting all of these mixed signals and we really don't know what's going on. So until you get in that situation, it's all you could do is take the best decisions you can to know what we've done to fight other viruses and to support our immunity. Because the best guess is that the people who don't feel anything or don't notice that they have it is because they have a great immunity. So it's working on those things. The other thing you can do is possibly start a practice of meditation. And the reason I say possibly is because it might be difficult to just jump right into a practice of meditation, because that oftentimes means people just close their eyes and they have just a big giant stress session and spiral down and make things worse. And one of the things I like to talk about with that is neutral thought, and that is in opposition to positive thinking. Because when you're in a negative circumstance or situation or you're feeling bad, you can't just say, okay, everything's great and I'm going to feel okay. There are a number of steps you do as if you were driving your car backwards when you wanted to go forwards. So in order to stop doing that, driving backwards, you first of all have to stop the car. Then you have to turn around and look to where you want to go. Then you shift the car to neutral before it gets into drive and go. So neutral thought is is more like where you want to be, so that you can get yourself to linear thought and get to a place where you're making proper decisions to get to where you want to be. And that means if you're having trouble getting out of your stress and you want to go to meditation, that could be done with deep breathing, because deep breathing releases your fight or flight and allows your nervous system to relax and get you to a better place. Another way to do this is with gratitude. A lot of my meditations in my classes, I start out with people by thinking about themselves in a really happy place. And that could be the beach for you, or walking through nature, or it could be playing with your baby or your niece or your nephew or something like that. Something that makes you forget everything else and you just feel happy. And that could be a connection with another person. So it is a matter of bringing yourself to the steps that can get you to a practice of regular meditation, which I would highly recommend, but I don't want people to go and do this if they're in a state of panic and think, okay, meditation didn't work for me because I just panicked more. Because in that case, you didn't really meditate. You just had a big stress session. Another thing to do that's really important right now is to have a routine, because people could get just in a place where they're just watching horror movies until 3 o'clock in the morning, then their whole sleep cycle is messed up, and then they just feel depressed during the day because they have nothing to do. Now is the perfect time to start that hobby that you've been talking about for so long, and that might mean writing a children's book. And writing is something that can be very therapeutic. I've taken writing classes my whole life, and it's one of the most important things to me that I realize is that most of the writers in there don't have any success or anything published, but they're still so happy that they're doing the writing. A teacher once told me about that, and he said, in 30 years, I never met anyone that was sorry that they started writing. So don't write with the idea that you're going to have success with it. It's just a matter of feeling good in what you're doing. If you're going to start a hobby of cooking, you're not looking to be a master chef in a restaurant, but you just want to have fun doing it and be able to share that with other people. There are so many things on the internet that you can do that can allow you to develop a routine and start the hobby that you've been talking about for so long. Other ways that you can help yourself in a routine is to have a regular practice of exercise, something that you're doing at home, and I have a whole series on that and more videos coming for that. So there are a number of things you can do to get out of this, and a really important one is social interaction. There was a doctor who did a study on the vagus nerve and our nervous system, and we had two categories for our nervous system, and that was calm and activated. And he found out there was a third one, which is both of these at the same time. And the number one way to get to that place is by feeling the security of connection. And although we can't be with each other physically right now, you could talk on Skype, FaceTime, you could have a phone conversation, but your nervous system becomes relaxed and calm when you are in a place of feeling a connection to another person. And now it's almost like there's no excuse not to have that with all the time that we have on our hands. So I hope you follow all of these steps and then can lead yourself to a practice of meditation and eating better and doing all the things that you know are going to support your health physically, mentally, and spiritually. So for more videos on health and wellness, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell. Good luck with this. So just to sum it up, find evidence to support your calm, having a routine including eating healthy, going to bed and waking up at the same times, and exercise, starting the hobby that you've been talking about for so long, deep breathing, neutral thought, and meditating, connecting with people, and right now that can be done on the phone or Skype, and allowing yourself to feel the gratitude of all the great things that you have in your life.